Hey guys, what's up? It's Fern. Thank you so much for joining me for another Planty video. So today we are just having a little Planty chat. I thought we could sit down and discuss and compare and contrast pairs of plants that are often thought of as being similar. I thought this would be a fun little video to do because often there's, some plants that are kind of in the same realm and oftentimes like so similar that maybe you don't need both of them. So I thought it'd be fun for me to kind of look through these pairs. I have 14 pairs, by the way. So I'm gonna look through them and kind of talk about which one I would choose if I absolutely had to. Now, some of these plants I own both of. Like, out of the pair, I own both of the plants. Some of them I only own one of them, and some of them I actually don't own either of them. So, yes. Also, a huge shout out to everyone on my Patreon that helped me out with this video. I posted on there and asked for suggestions of pairs of plants, and y'all came through. I think that all of these pairs, except for the very first one that I'm going to talk about, were submitted by people on my Patreon, so thank you so much. I guess we will just hop into it. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the one that just immediately came to my mind when I thought of this video. And I think that that's because I'm just very fixated on these plants right now. I really like them. So the first pair that I'm going to talk about is Philodendron Splendid versus Philodendron Glorious. So these are both Melanochrysum hybrids. The Splendid is Melanochrysum and verrucosum, and the Glorious is Melanochrysum and gloriosum. So they do share similar traits. They are both gorgeous, velvety, like deep, dark, velvety leaved climbing philodendron. They're both relatively easy to grow. And I love both of these plants. I own both of them. And I would suggest either of them as an alternative to Melanochrysum if you like the look of the Melanochrysum, but you don't want to deal with how finicky it can be. Because it can be very finicky, not only to grow, but especially to size up. Like if you want larger leaves, unless you buy it already mature, then that's a little bit different. But I've had mine for years, and the leaves are still like this. So it's been a struggle. I'm still working on it, but it's definitely been a struggle. Whereas I've had my Splendid and Glorious for like just over a year, and they both have pretty decent sized leaves on them now. Maybe I will actually bring them over here. Like, I own both of them, so I should probably show you them. I'm just being lazy and not wanting to bring them over because the Splendid is a bit of a beast these days. But let me go grab them. It was a bad idea, y'all. It was a bad idea. I knew I shouldn't have brought them over. Shoot. I think he's okay, but I can smell the philodendron smell, so I think something has snapped somewhere. Okay, he'll be fine, but yes, this is my Philodendron Splendid. This is the newest leaf here on the largest vine. It's very beautiful. This leaf actually came out when this plant was quite severely underwatered as well, so it might have been a little bit bigger if I would have been more up on my watering, but I'm still very, very impressed with it. And on this leaf, I can really see the veining becoming a little bit more prominent on this one too. This is the newest leaf on a lower vine. I have multiple vines growing on here, but on some of the lower ones, it's not, the veining's not like quite as, oh, you can't even really see. Anyways, all I'm saying is that I'm starting to see a little bit more of the verrucosum traits coming out here, which is really cool. And like the back of the leaves too have that red. Yeah, very stunning, very impressive. Oh, maybe this. Oh, this was the last leaf on this vine. It's so pretty. Yeah, I love this plant so much, and it's quite tall. How tall is this? Probably over 4 feet, I would say. And I am air layering right now, so that's partially why it's so unstable, but I have like multiple sphagnum moss things taped around here. Anyways, I'm gonna put him back in his spot, but that is my Splendid. And then this one right here is my Philodendron Glorious. So she's really started to size up recently. This is the newest leaf on the biggest vine on hers. So as you can see, they look super similar, especially at this like stage in their growth. By the way, I'm not going to be this I'm not going to take this long to talk about all of them. I know we have a lot to go through, but just since these two are some of my favorites, I just had to take the extra time to show them off. But one of the differences that I really like about this one is it got the gloriosum like red edging on the edges of the leaves are red is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if you'll be able to tell on camera. I don't think it'll focus enough, but that's really pretty. I really like that. And I think that the leaves are like a little bit more velvety, I would say, like a little bit more shiny and kind of deeper in color. I'm looking at the Splendid to make sure I agree with that statement, but I think I do. So I'm showing you like the nice side of this plant, but there are a lot of leaves that are not so nice on this one. Oh, there's a nice new one coming in right there. But a problem that I have had with this plant is the leaves getting caught unfurling, and that could be due to me because I do tend to underwater, and this is what can happen. But I will say that that does play into my decision of picking Philodendron Splendid out of this duo. Maybe I'll leave her there for the video. She's so cute. Yeah, I do find Glorious just a little bit trickier to grow. I wouldn't say it's a hard plant by any means, but I have just struggled with it a little bit more. My Philodendron Splendid has never given me any trouble. I've never had leaves tearing as they come out. Like I said, it was just severely underwatered, and it pretty much doesn't show it. Whereas this plant, if I underwater or something like that, then it does show it. The leaves have a lot of trouble emerging, and it's just a little bit fussier in that way. I love them both so much, but another reason that I do have to go with the Splendid is just because I think I prefer the Philodendron verrucosum over the Philodendron gloriosum. Verrucosum is one of my favorite plants, so of course I'm going to gravitate to the Splendid because that's one of the parents, so I love just seeing those verrucosum traits come through. But yeah, honestly, both phenomenal plants, love them, and definitely will be keeping both of them in my collection. Alright, the next pair is going to be Monstera Adansonii versus Monstera Obliqua, and I thought that this was a really good one because they definitely share a lot of similarities in the way that the leaf looks. Like, they both have that very holy kind of vining Monstera leaf, and I do think that they're both very pretty. So I do have both of these ones, so I will show you. I guess first of all, I'll show you my Obliqua. She's seen better days. I'll be honest here. She's definitely seen better days. Yeah, I've recently been dealing with a lot of like yellowing, and I had a period of underwatering, like I said, and I'm also having problems with my, not problems, but just things that need to be remedied in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet. So though that's definitely showing up on some of the plants in there, and this is one that was kind of hit with some of these things. But anyways, it is a very cool plant. The leaves are a lot more delicate looking, like they're a lot more thin. The holes are much larger than Monstera Adansonii, and it also tends to run a lot, but Monstera Adansonii can also run if not given the proper light mostly. But yeah, this is how mine, it actually has a new leaf coming in, but the new leaf kind of looks like crap, so that sucks. I really need to like tend to this plant and remove some leaves and stuff. It's just looking a little rough, but you know, with some TLC, I'm sure she'll bounce right back. So that is my Monstera Obliqua. This is typically a lot more expensive and a lot harder to get your hands on, and also more difficult to care for. It usually requires more humidity. It likes less light. And it likes to climb, or else it will run. So yeah, that is my Monstera Obliqua. Next is my beautiful Monstera Adansonii, and as you can see, very similar, but again, smaller holes in the leaves, a much like broader and sturdier leaf on this guy. It's definitely just a hardier plant, but like honestly, similar kind of vibe, a vining Monstera. Wow, I didn't even realize how long her vine was because I've had it wrapped around the pot. Unfortunately, I had to remove a couple leaves on this recently. This one was damaged too, but I left it on because they were too close to my heat vent and they got scorched, which is unfortunate because I really like this plant. The leaves are just so pretty. This plant is relatively easy care. It likes moderate to bright light. It likes to be watered like pretty much all my other plants. I let it dry out and then I give it a thorough drench. I would consider it fairly low maintenance. They're also very cheap. You can probably get free cuttings from your local plant group. You can find them at most plant shops, grocery stores, just quite a common plant. I'm a really big fan of Monstera Adansonii. You can also grow this either climbing or trailing, and I find that it does really well both ways. I've grown multiple of them, and I've done both climbing and trailing for various sized plants, and they've all done really well. I have to say, if I had to choose one, I would definitely go for my Monstera Adansonii. I love this plant so much. I feel like it's really underrated. Like, it's so beautiful. And just little details about this plant, like when you look at it in the sunlight, the leaves actually shimmer. Like they're not velvety, but they have a sheen to them that's just so pretty. I feel like it doesn't get enough love, maybe because it is just a more common houseplant now. When I first got into plants, this was like a hot ticket item. I paid like $70 or $80 for my Monstera Adansonii when I first got it, which this is a cutting from my original plant. But yeah, they were very sought after. Obliqua was not even on the radar. This was like in the age of it's never Obliqua or whatever the frig, which obviously now it is Obliqua. So yeah, I mean, similar, but also quite different. And if I had to get rid of one, I'd get rid of the Obliqua. Obviously I like it. I like all of these plants, but yeah, if I had to choose. Those are the pros and the cons. Okay, next we are talking variegated Monstera. So this is, of course, going to be Monstera Albo versus Monstera Thai Constellation. I just watered like a lot of these plants I'm talking about today too, so a lot of them are heavy. This is just, I guess we'll start with Monstera Albo. This is just a top cut from my current plant. If you haven't seen my video where I propagated my Monstera Albo, I will link that down below. It was one of my, not my last, I don't think, one of my recent videos. Anyways, so I've had the Monstera Albo for less time. I've had the Thai for like an extra year, I think, and if you've been on my channel for a while, then you're probably familiar with the saga of this thing rotting like 10 times. But anyways, my Monstera Albo. This has been honestly such an easy plant for me to grow. I would compare it to the green regular Monstera deliciosa if you've grown that before. Mine isn't super high variegation, so I don't really have to worry about things like browning, and so, like I haven't really had a lot of experience with that. I do have some sectoral variegation on the other cuttings in the mother plant, but for the most part it's not super variegated, so that might play into why it grows so vigorously and why it's been more easy care for me as well. But regardless, this has just been such a breeze and honestly such a joy to grow. It's so fun to anticipate what the new leaves are gonna look like when they come out. I'm always, whenever a new leaf is emerging, I'm always checking on it every day, and it's lots of fun. It grows very fast. I usually get like a new leaf a month, I would say. Okay, sorry, my battery died. And oh my goodness, I'm just noticing how fast my candle is burning back there. Holy smokes, it's gonna be like nothing by the time I'm done filming. Okay, so the Monstera Albo, as I was saying, very beautiful, very easy to grow. It still has a fairly high price tag attached to it. I think it's really fun that these can have all different types of variegation. Like, it can be splashy, it can be sectoral, it can be cream, minty, like it just depends on the plant. Like I said, I have 3 of them now, and I'm really curious of what the new growth is going to look like and what the variegation is going to look like, because, you know, it depends where you chop and what nodes activate, but yeah, really exciting plant to grow. And then my Thai Constellation, on the other hand, okay, so let's talk about the good first of all. I think that this plant is so beautiful. I love the variegation. It's more of a cream versus a white. The Albo tends to be more of typically like a white and like minty variegation, whereas the Thai Constellation often is a bit more of a cream and also kind of like minty in some spots, but more so like a cream. And usually less sectoral variegation, although it really depends on the specimen. Like sometimes they do have huge, even like half moon and like a lot of the cream, which are just like so pretty. But typically it's a little bit more splashy. I do think that the variegation is stable. Is that correct? I think it's stable on the Thais, and it's not stable, it's unstable on the Albos. So that's, I guess, another bonus. But I want to talk about the variegation because, and like the aesthetics of the plant in general, because I do think that I prefer the Monstera Thai Constellation. Like if I had the same growing experience for both of them, I would prefer the Thai Constellation because I think that they're just beautiful. I love the variegation. I love how large they can get. I think maybe there's like a large form of the Albo, but for the most part, they are the Borsigiana, which is like a smaller form of Monstera deliciosa, whereas these ones can actually get like huge, massive leaves with tons of fenestrations and like mid-rib fenestrations and different rows of fenestrations, and they can get large, is what I'm saying. So yeah, aesthetically, I prefer the look of the Thai, especially the big ones. I think that they're so beautiful. I love that the variegation is more stable. And yeah, I just think that they are incredibly beautiful plants. So if I had to pick on aesthetics, I would pick the Thai Constellation. But like I said, I have had such a hard time growing this plant. I have a whole playlist on my channel, by the way, if you want to check it out and watch my journey with this plant. But I've had it for like, I don't know, over 3 years now, and as you can see, it's like small. I have 2 different plants potted in here actually, and yeah, it just doesn't grow for me. It's rotted so many times. I find it very finicky when it comes to root rot. Some people comment that they think it's just my specimen, like the genetics of my specific plant, and that I should just get another one. And I have been thinking about getting another one recently. I mentioned that in one of my previous videos as well, so I might do that. But yeah, it's just been a tough journey trying to grow this plant. I would definitely consider it one of my hardest plants. I just don't know what it wants from me, or like how, I don't know, man. I've had it for years and it's just, we're still here. So just because of that, I have to go with the Monstera Albo. I've just had a much more positive growing experience with it. So yeah, I love them both, and I always want to have a Thai and an Albo in my collection, which is why I'm like considering getting another one, because like if this one's not going to grow, I at least want one to grow in my collection. I also would love to add an Hoya to my collection one day. I don't think I have the space for one now, but I love the yellow variegation, and yeah, I'm not including that in this pair, but just a side note, I also love the Hoya and would love to have one day. And the mint ones, oh my goodness, don't even get me started. I mean, that's out of reach, but wow. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about a couple of plants that I actually don't have. I would love either of them. I'm obsessed, but I don't have either of them. But I will talk about them a little bit. So that is Begonia melanobullata versus Begonia ferox. So these are both like spiky kind of begonias. I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with them. They are popping up a little bit more. I did see Begonia ferox at my local garden center in like the spring or the summer. They had them and I saw them in person and I was like, wow, like I wish, but they were $100 and the ones that they had left didn't look amazing, so I didn't bother. But definitely these are on my radar. So I obviously don't have any growing experience with them. I would imagine that it's quite similar. And what I do have is Begonia dracopelta. So this has a similar look as well, but the bumps are like rounded rather than spiky. So it's not the same, but it is like similar. But Begonia ferox and melanobullata look honestly quite similar, and for a while I didn't even know what the difference was, but I recently learned that Begonia melanobullata has hairs at the top of the like cone thing, the spikes. There's a hair that comes out, and the Begonia ferox doesn't have that. It's just the spike, is what I've heard. I'm not the expert, I don't have either of these, but that's what I've heard is like the main difference between them. So I thought that that was really interesting, and based on that information, I think I would go with the Begonia melanobullata just because I love hairy plants. So like bring on the weird little hairs at the tip. That sounds odd. But yeah, I think that they're both incredible. I love just like weird looking plants, which is what these are, especially begonia. There's so many just like bizarre begonia, which is why I love that genus. But yeah, I think I would have to pick melanobullata. That being said, I would be completely happy with either of them. Like the ferox is honestly almost the same, and is just so cool. So I love both of them, and whichever one I can get my hands on first is the one for me, basically. Okay, so that was a quick one. Moving on to Hoya Crimson Queen versus Hoya Crimson Princess. Now, I actually do have both of these plants, so let me go grab them. Okay, so this is my Hoya Crimson Queen, and yes, she is absolutely incredible. I've had her for years, and as you can see, she's massive. She's actually super light right now, so I need to water her. Fun fact, I only water this plant about once every 4 to 6 weeks, and she's super happy with that. Like, the leaves are even still firm right now, and it's like pretty dry. Okay, so I said I have both of them, but I didn't bring the Crimson Princess out here because that's on my mealybug shelf, and I just cannot imagine if this got mealybugs, so I don't want to be touching both of them at the same time. But my Crimson Princess is just very small. It probably wouldn't even be fair to compare and contrast them. But yeah, this is my Crimson Princess. So the difference between the Hoya Crimson Princess and the Crimson Queen is that the Queen is variegated on the outside of the leaf. So as you can see, it's dark green in the middle, and then on the edges it is white, or like a cream. And the amount varies per leaf. It even gives out like all white leaves. Like, look at that. Oh my goodness, I love her so much. Like, how beautiful. But yeah. Variegated on the outside, and then the Crimson Princess is variegated on the inside of the leaf. So it's just reversed. Where the green is, the white would be. I'll insert a photo, obviously, but I'm sure a lot of y'all, these are common Hoya, so a lot of y'all are probably familiar. So when I was thinking about this originally, I was like, this isn't really a fair comparison, because in my mind, I'm just like, Crimson Queen, like, she reigns queen. She reigns queen forever. Like, there's no competition. But then I was thinking, like, the Crimson Princess is also very beautiful, and it especially looks beautiful when the new leaves emerge, because they come out like a very deep, hot pink, and it's so pretty because there's so much white on the leaves, right? Yeah, I love getting new leaves on that plant. It's very stunning. The care for them is pretty similar. I mean, pretty much the same, I would say. I do think that the Crimson Queen grows faster. At least my princess grows very slow. And I think that it's a possibility that the Queen grows faster because she has more green, whereas the princess usually is like more dominant in the variegation in the white part. So based on my own biased experience here, because of this massive one I have, I just have to choose Crimson Queen. Like, I can't not. But honestly, I do think, like, if I was to compare like a large, beautiful hanging basket of both of them, I do think I would prefer the Queen, because I don't know, I just think I like having a little bit more green. I don't know, I just prefer this. Okay? I don't know what to tell you. However, I do really love the vines that come out all white, so I don't know. Like, she just does all kinds of things. She comes out with like really white leaves with a little bit of green. Some of them have like different tones, like this one has like some mintiness in the middle there. But yeah, she grows pretty fast, like Half Moon, look at this. She grows pretty fast because she typically has more green. Oh wow, I'm obsessed with her. It's just been a very extremely easy plant for me, and I have to choose her. Like, I don't know, if you have both of these that are like the same size, and you could leave comments down below like talking about the rate of growth, and maybe give like a little bit less of a biased opinion, then please let us all know. But for now, I just have to go with the Queen. This has been one of my favorite plants for years now. It's been it's definitely like probably my toughest plant, honestly. Like, it's very low maintenance. I've never had any pest, anything happen with it. It's in the original pot and potting mix from the garden center. Like, she's just been a dream. So yeah, I obviously have to choose her. Okay, next we're doing a couple of Anthurium. So we are going to be comparing Philodendron Anthurium pallidiflorum, which I'm obsessed with. This is gonna be a biased one again, but whatever. Anthurium pallidiflorum, incredible, beautiful, velvety belt leaves, pendant leaves. We are going to be comparing her with why do I say philodendron again? Anthurium vittarifolium. Now, my vittarifolium is looking all types of crazy. I'm actually thinking about propagating it and like starting it over again because it just looks like, it looks absurd. Look at the way it's growing. Like, what is even going on? It was like going down and now it's coming back up again and it's just like a big weird vine. It also has 2 inflorescence on it. If you can see, it's the first time it's bloomed for me. I'm just letting them hang out. I don't know. So obviously this one isn't as mature as the pallidiflorum, but it's essentially a very similar plant, like the same idea. It gets those really long, strappy leaves, and it's very beautiful. Mine looks crazy, I know, but it is an extremely beautiful anthurium. I love both of these very much. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind that the vittarifolium can't look as beautiful as this pallidiflorum is looking here. I think that they're both incredible. I really love like any pendant or belt leafed anthuriums, or philodendron for that matter. One of the main differences in these 2 plants is that the pallidiflorum here has a velvet leaf. So it's very shimmery, very shiny, a beautiful deep dark green. It's incredible, honestly. And this one is, it's not velvety, essentially. It's just like kind of a regular leaf texture. Still beautiful. But the interesting thing about these is that you would think because this one has the velvet leaf that it would be more difficult to take care of and more finicky and need higher humidity. But I actually find that it's the opposite. This is honestly one of the easiest plants in my whole houseplant collection. It's extremely forgiving, it's fast growing, it's just like it even has a new leaf that's gonna start emerging from there. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but right there. Yeah, it's so easy, you guys. Like, I underwater it, I do whatever to it, and it just still grows incredibly. This one, on the other hand, lives in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet. It has problems sizing up. Like, I can't seem to get this to give me the nice, like, kind of like belt leaves. This one is in semi-hydro. I do have 2 of these though, and the other one is in potting mix, and it's just kind of hanging out as well. Yeah, I've just had a harder time growing this one. So considering that this one's a little bit more difficult for me, it's just like a little, yeah, not as cute. Versus this one that I've had a really easy time with, and it has a beautiful velvet leaf, which I would prefer if I had to choose between like a velvet and a non-velvet. I would pick the velvet. Yeah, I have to choose the pallidiflorum. I just have to. I'm honestly shocked by how easy it has been to grow. It's my easiest anthurium in my whole anthurium collection. Yeah, it's just been a dream, honestly. And this one, I need to put more effort into getting this to grow better, because I do really want to see it get to the point where it's getting more mature and giving me long leaves and whatnot, because I do think that they're incredibly beautiful. But I've heard that these don't do as well in lower humidity, although I have seen people grow them in lower humidity, in like regular room humidity. So I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying I've heard that it can be a little bit more tricky, especially when it comes to new leaves coming out and everything. Like, they just prefer a bit higher humidity. The other one, this one lives in the cabinet, but the other one lives in my bedroom, so I'm kind of seeing how it's gonna do in just like regular room conditions. But yeah, I do love them both, but if I had to pick one, I would 100% go with the pallidiflorum. Okay, next we're talking about a philodendron that I don't own. I've never owned either of them. I've seen them a lot, but I haven't owned them. I would love to own either of them. I think that they're really interesting, unique, and beautiful plants. And that is the Philodendron Joepii versus Philodendron 69686. I don't know why those numbers always confuse me. Like, I know it in my brain, but then when I say it out loud, I'm like, why does it sound wrong? Anyways, yes, these are both very unique looking philodendron. As I said, they have a very interesting like trilobe shape going on. Typically like a very narrow waist, is what I want to say. yeah, I'll insert photos so you'll be able to see. So aesthetically, these plants are similar, not the same, but similar. And for a long time, the 69686 has been like a cheaper dupe for the Philodendron Joepii. They're definitely not the same. Like they can look quite different, but similar vibes, if you will. One of the main differences that has existed between these two plants is the price tag. For a long time, the Joepii was very, very difficult to obtain. It was like one of those, you know, like top tier collector plants. Like you couldn't really buy one, you couldn't really find them around. But now they're popping up. They've been tissue cultured. You can find them. I saw one for sale for like, I don't know, 100 something bucks a couple months ago. I was debating buying it, but I didn't. But yeah, you can definitely get your hands on them now. It's kind of like the Obliqua. Like the Obliqua is very accessible. I'm not very accessible, but like, you know, you can buy one if you have like 100 bucks. So it's definitely not as attainable as the 69686 or cheap as that one, but it's not like it used to be. So I feel like that puts them on a little bit more even playing field, you know? But don't have any experience, don't know if they're easy or hard to grow or anything. Like I said, I love the way that both of them look. But I think if I had to choose one, like if I had, like I said, like 100 something bucks and I wanted to buy a plant that had this shape, I think I would just go for the Joepii. Like I said, I love the 69686. I think that it's a super cool plant, but the Philodendron Joepii does have a bit more of a dramatic shape from the photos I've seen, okay? Yeah, it can get, it's just like very, just more dramatic looking. Yeah, like I'm looking at photos and the Joepii, it's very cool. Like I feel like that skinny part is more like elongated and just a bit more pronounced. Like, yeah, it's definitely a really cool philodendron. I mean, not for everyone, but if you're into that, like, very cool. And I love the story of how this philodendron was discovered as well. They thought that it had been eaten away by ants. Like, they didn't realize that that was how it grew. That's how its natural shape was. They thought that the ants had just, like, eaten a weird pattern into it. So, I don't know. I just love that. Really cool plants. Like I said, I love both of them, and I would honestly be happy to grow either one of them in my collection one day, but I just feel like now that the price has come down, it's like, okay, I might as well just go for the Joepii. If you have the Joepii, leave a comment down below and let me know what the care is like, or if you have the 69686, I would love to hear what the care is like on that one as well. Yeah, very cool, unique plants, and I don't have anything like them in my collection. Okay, so next I have kind of a triple or quadruple whammy one, because I had somebody suggest Philodendron goldiana, which I think is also known as caulkins gold, versus painted lady. So those are quite similar. I do have the painted lady, which is why I have her right here. She's massive, so you're not able to see all of her, but I'll just sit her on my lap like this. One of my all-time favorite houseplants, one that I'm always saying is underrated and people need to check out. She has bigger leaves up here, but as you can see, she's a beautiful green, and then she has this like yellowy, sometimes orangey, pinky variegation on the leaf, especially on the newer leaves. I do have a new leaf right here, which is they come out very yellowy and pinky, and the variegation is a bit more pronounced, and then it usually kind of like fades down a little bit. So a main difference between, so the caulkins gold is very similar in looks to the painted lady. However, I think one of the main differences, if I'm not mistaken, is that the painted lady has these beautiful pink, oh my goodness, it's so hard to show her because she's so big. Actually, I have a smaller, there's like a baby offshoot growing here. So I'll show this one. One of the main differences is that the painted lady has pink petioles. There's actually quite a bit of pink on the painted lady, like it runs all underneath. But you can see just like how like vibrant pink this is. It's so beautiful, and I just think it provides such incredible contrast to this plant. But the caulkins gold doesn't, it just has green vines and petioles. So based on that difference alone, like I'm assuming that the care is quite similar. I mean, they look very similar besides this difference. But just because of that alone, I would opt 100% for the painted lady, because I love the contrast of the pink. If you're not a pink plant person and you don't care for that, then, you know, the caulkins gold is a great option. But I think that the caulkins gold is honestly harder to find too. Like I've never seen one before, but I've come across, like I've seen painted ladies, you know, you can find them on Facebook or on plant shops or wherever really, like from your plant friends, maybe they'd give you a cutting, but yeah, I would 100% go with a painted lady. Now, another one that I was being asked to compare the painted lady to was Philodendron red emerald. Okay, so I don't really know the difference between like the philodendron, like red Congo and red imperial and red emerald, but I think I was gonna say that the red emerald is probably just like a common one that you can find on plant shops, but now that I'm looking at photos, I'm like, I don't know if it is. So maybe I don't even know what I'm talking about. But it looks pretty much exactly like the painted lady in leaf shape and growth pattern. The main difference it looks like is it doesn't have the variegation, the like painted part, and the leaves come out like a really dark kind of red color. It's very beautiful actually. It's never really been on my radar before, but yeah, wow, it's really beautiful. Definitely has a lot of red. The petioles and stems are red. But yeah, very similar like growth pattern and leaf shape. So I'm assuming that's why I was asked to, I'm assuming that's why it was commented to be similar to the painted lady. But again, I think I would have to go with the painted lady. I'd rather have the painted lady and the Dark Lord because I feel like the Dark Lord can kind of like provide that like red, like again, that one has a very similar shape to this and it can kind of like provide that red, like if you are wanting the red. I think I would go for the Dark Lord honestly, just because I love dark plants as well. I'd choose that over the red emerald. But yeah, interesting. And then this one, this one I just wanted to like throw in here because I'm literally obsessed right now. So I've heard of Philodendron marmalade before and I never really knew the difference between that one and the painted lady because it does look very similar as well. But I've recently seen them popping up more. I've been seeing more people have them in photos on Instagram and oh my goodness, you guys, it is like, as my friend put it, it looks like a painted lady on steroids. And honestly it does, like it looks very similar, like the leaf variegation and coloring and everything is pretty much the same, but the leaves come out like a really dark orange and then kind of fades to this color of the painted lady, and the leaves also are bigger and more elongated. It can get much more massive, so it really is just like a crazy painted lady. And that one is, oh my goodness, I don't want to say I would pick it over my beautiful painted lady right here because obviously I love her and I've grown this from like a one leaf cutting, so she is my baby. But probably my number one wish list plant right now is Philodendron orange marmalade, and apparently it's also going by Philodendron quad color, and apparently these are popping. Is that what it is? Quad color? Yeah. I hate that name, by the way, quad color. Like, why aren't we calling it orange marmalade? I feel like that's so much nicer, if it is in fact the same plant. If it is not, then never mind. But from what I've seen, I think that that's two names for the same plant, and I'm literally obsessed. I really, really want one, so I'll probably end up ordering one, or like at least going and looking around. If you're in BC, tell me if they have been popping up locally, because I would rather just go to the store and buy it locally rather than having it shipped. But I just haven't been to any plant stores recently, so y'all gotta be my eyes, please, and comment down below if you've seen them, because oh my goodness. But I think again that they're going by the quad color name. Anyways, that was a long rant, but yeah, any of the plants in this realm, I just love them all. Okay, I think I'm gonna have a snack break. BRB. Okay, I'm back from my little snack break, and I just saw that one of my best friends posted that some of my merch arrived in her mail today, and I didn't even know that she ordered. So what a sweet surprise. That totally made my afternoon. She got one of these stickers. This is honestly one of my favorite things, this sticker. They're just so freaking cute. So we're twins now. I also made a cup of tea, so I'm gonna let that cool down behind me while we talk about the next duo, and that is none other than Philodendron, okay, I'll show them one at a time. Philodendron Jungle Boogie or Philodendron Narrow. It can go by either name. It's just this kind of like serrated, slender green leaf philodendron, and it is extremely beautiful. I just recently repotted mine. I think I did this in a repot. Yeah, my last chatty repot with me video is when I potted this up, I believe. So yeah, that's mine. And I'm going to be comparing that one to Philodendron Ring of Fire, which is very similar. However, this one has, like, it's very similar in leaf shape and growth pattern. However, this one has variegation, so that's very fun. And the variegation on the Ring of Fire is actually really cool because it can come out, honestly, like all types of colors and all types of patterns. Like, it can be splashy, it can be sectoral, it can be orange, pink, cream. Yeah, it's such a fun plant. Look at that. There's like pink on this one. This is the newest leaf and I'm really happy with it. Like these patches of variegation, oh my goodness, it's so pretty. I was talking about this plant in, I don't know, a video like a month or so back, and I was saying that this Philodendron Ring of Fire that I got, this came into one of my local plant shops and I ran out and bought it. It was, you know, there wasn't many left. It was like a one per customer, you know, like a hot commodity type of situation. So I just grabbed whichever one I could get my little paws on. And this is the one I grabbed. And the variegation isn't great. Like, you know, it's a pretty low variegated specimen as far as they go. Like, some of them are very highly variegated and just so stunning. And I was kind of saying in this video that, well, I was asking really if like how stable the variegation is. Like, is it likely that it's going to change, or is it probably just going to like stay like this? And I got some replies, people saying that they also had a Ring of Fire that wasn't super variegated, and now it's super variegated. So as it matured, the variegation kind of changed, or some people said as they propagated it, it became more variegated. So I'm holding out a lot of hope on this plant, but I will say I am very, very happy with this leaf. I just think that it is so nice. So yeah, this is mine. Like I said, very similar plant, except for this is basically just like the variegated form. Something that is cool about the Philodendron Narrow, so yes, it's not variegated, it's just green, but when the new leaves come in, they're so pretty. Like, when they haven't unfurled yet, when they're still emerging, they're like a bright pink. At least they are on mine. It's like a hot pink, and it's just so stunning. I wish I would have taken a photo when this leaf right here is the newest one. It just came out like a week ago, and yeah, it was so pink when it was like rolled up. I mean, you can still see a little bit on the back. Oh, maybe the camera won't show, but in person I can still see some of the pink in this plant on the back. But yeah, like, can you see? I don't think the camera is showing it, but it is quite pink in person. So that's something that's kind of fun. I mean, you can see like down here the pink color. Yeah, so that's something that I really like about this plant. Okay, so if I had to pick, the care is super easy. I didn't talk about the care. The care is super easy for both of these. In my experience, I thought the Ring of Fire would maybe be a little bit more finicky, but honestly it grows like a beast, like maybe even faster than this one. Yeah, they're both just very chill, and you can have them climbing or you can just grow them without a pole. Like, they have very tight internodal spacing, so a pole isn't really necessary, but they can climb. I got some comments on when I repotted this and added the pole that it won't climb. Not some, I think I literally got one comment saying that, but you know, these things stick in my brain. Like, of course I've researched it before I did it, so yes, they can climb. Some people do have theirs on poles and they look phenomenal and they grow massive, so that's what I'm hoping. You know, I'm hoping mine will continue to grow and climb up here. I don't know if I'll put this one on a pole or not. I guess I'll have to decide. It's getting a little bit floppy. It honestly probably could benefit from a pole. But yeah, okay, so love both of them, but if I had to choose, oh my goodness, this one I really struggle to choose. Like, I love them both. I don't know, like, right now I'm kind of in this green plant moment. Like, I'm not super into variegated plants right now. I really love just like the solid green. I love like the ease of that and just the way it looks aesthetically. Really into just like green. However, I I just can't deny like how cool this one is and how beautiful they look, and especially in like mature specimens or like other specimens with more variegation and all the different colors that can come in, and it's still such an easy plant to grow. Like, how do I choose? How do I choose? Okay, if I had to get rid of one today, oh gosh, I'm taking this hypothetical question way too seriously. I guess I would keep the Ring of Fire. I guess. I don't know. Just because I'm so curious to see what it's gonna look like as it grows and like how the variegation is gonna come in, and I guess the variegation does add a little bit of a fun element, but oh, it's so hard. I feel bad saying that because I do love this one so much. Oh my goodness. Okay, I guess that's gonna be my final answer. Okay, the next one that I'm going to talk about is the lemon lime philodendron, the trailing one, versus the neon pothos. I do have the lemon lime, but it's hanging on my wall, and honestly mine is not like the most amazing specimen. Like, she does have some rough spots, so I'll just leave her there. I do not have the neon pothos, although I have had it in the past and I loved growing it. So these are both a very kind of like neon green / yellowy colored leaf. They're both trailing plants. I mean, you could grow them climbing, but most typically you can find them in like hanging baskets as trailing plants. They have a very similar vibe, honestly, and it's kind of hard to choose between these ones as well. I've always been a pothos girl through and through. That's how I started, you know, with my Marble Queen pothos. I love them so much. I love how easy they are. They're so hardy. I do think that they're easier and hardier than the trailing philodendron. They have like a bit of a thicker leaf, and they're just like tougher than these trailing heartly philodendron in my opinion. And I feel like we could compare and contrast a lot of the trailing philodendron with pothos. Like, you know, there's like the jade pothos and just the green heartly philodendron, or the Marble Queen pothos and the variegated heartly philodendron, you know, but we're talking about the neons in this one specifically. When I consider my own experience, I have had definitely a tougher time growing the neon, the lemon lime philodendron. I find it to be a little bit more, what's the word? Not like delicate, a little bit more delicate. Like I said, it's a thinner leaf. I find that it shows like any cosmetic damage a lot easier. It will show underwatering more, or overwatering, or pest damage, whereas the neon pothos, it's a thicker leaf. It's got, you know, it's a pothos. Like, I really didn't have any problems with mine, even when it was infested with spider mites. This was like a couple of years ago, but even when it was infested with spider mites, it like barely showed the damage. They're just tough plants. It's just, yeah, the leaf texture and the leaf thickness I find is like the main difference between them, and obviously like the leaf shape, and like they look a little bit different, but in general the same vibe. But because of that, because of my experience growing them, and I just had a much easier time growing the neon pothos, and I just love pothos, I think I would go with the neon pothos. I honestly miss growing that plant. It's such a cool pothos. That being said, I do love heartly philodendron, and I love it more than I used to. And I love growing them on my wall because I feel like they cascade really nicely, whereas pothos they're just a little bit more rigid and thicker, and they don't always lay as nicely, which was the main reason that I went with philodendron. So I mean, I guess that's a pro for the trailing philodendron, but in general, I just find pothos easier and hardier, and yeah, love them. Okay, so the next pair that we are going to be talking about is the Philodendron Florida Beauty, which this is mine. Yep. That is what she looks like versus... Can you guess what I'm going to compare it to? My beautiful Philodendron Florida Ghost. So this is my ghost. That is what she looks like. There is the newest leaf. There's another one on the way. This is my baby. There is no competition here at all. 10 out of 10 recommend the Florida Ghost over the Florida Beauty. The Florida Beauty is probably one of my least favorite plants right now. And you can probably see why. Well, first of all, it just looks like crap. A lot of the leaves have, you know, the white has just like crumbled away, and it is basically reverted. I mean, I don't know what the word is for this. It's like the opposite of reverted. Like, it only gives me variegated leaves. I've chopped it multiple times. I don't know what to do at this point. There's still nice leaves at the bottom, like nice variegation as you can see, but we have a lot of half mooning going on, and that can be dangerous when it comes to these types of variegated plants, because you can either get like solid green or solid variegated leaves from those vines, and mine has just gone solid variegated. Any suggestions on what I could do to restore this plant and bring variegation back, please do let me know. But yeah, I mean, I've had her in different growing, different lighting, different conditions. I really don't think that affects it. I think it's just the plant itself. But yeah, I've just had a very rough time with this and keeping the variegation. And it's really the only plant that I've really dealt with that on. Like, well, that's not true. My bromarks, my variegated bromarks, I've also lost the variegation on, but more so this Florida Beauty has been the biggest pain in the butt. I mean, other than the variegation issue, it's like fairly easy to grow, so I guess it gets points for that. But my Florida Ghost over here, as you can see, is super healthy, a very vigorous grower, and what's cool about the Florida Ghost is, of course, I'm sure a lot of... Okay, my battery died again, but as I was saying, what's cool about the Florida Ghost is that the leaves come out very light, so they can range from like a light green to like a pretty like stark white. Mine are super creamy white. I'm so happy with the way the coloring on this plant right now. She does unfortunately have mealybugs. I just cleaned her, but I'm seeing them popping up again, so that's annoying. But other than that, I mean, even like she has freaking mealybugs and she still looks this good. Like, are you kidding me? But yeah, the leaves come in light and then they fade to green. So that's like the whole premise of what this plant does, which is so cool. Like, you get all these different shades. I have like really minty leaves, and I'm trying not to touch her. I'm just trying to touch the pot, but I have really minty leaves and, you know, darker green leaves and white leaves, and this one's in transition right now. It's just such a cool plant. And I will say I've had problems with Florida Ghost before. I've had the leaves just stay white and not turn green, and that's not good because they'll literally just die off. And I've also had the leaves like come out green already, so not doing like the whole ghosting thing that it's supposed to be doing. So from what I've heard and from my experience, it's very dependent on lighting. If they're coming out too white and not turning green, you want to give less light, and vice versa. So I just seem to be in a sweet spot right now where this plant is growing exactly how I want it to be. It is in semi-hydro. It's one of my few plants that I have in semi-hydro in a self-watering pot in the Crystal Star Nursery pond, and it's super happy, and I couldn't be happier with this plant. I'm honestly obsessed with it. So yeah, it's a no-brainer for me to choose this one. I just love it. They have pretty much the same leaf shape. It's just the variegation, the type of variegation that the plants get. Yeah, love her so much. Okay, next. Okay, so next we are going to be talking about the Philodendron squamiferum. Mine has actually been growing lately, which is really fun. So we have this new leaf right here that's going to be unfurling pretty soon, and then I also have some new growth down here. This kind of has a similar leaf shape to the last philodendrons that we were talking about as well. Really love this leaf shape, so very into that. But the cool thing about this philodendron is definitely the hairy petioles. As you can see, they are quite fuzzy indeed, if it will focus. There we go. And they typically are like this deep kind of red color, so very pretty. Pretty laid back philodendron, quite easy to grow. Mine is doing pretty well. Doesn't have any like support or moss pole, but it would definitely be happier if it did. It's still just kind of like growing straight up. So I'm gonna be comparing that one to this one behind me, which is my Philodendron serpens, which has a very different leaf. But the thing that is similar about these plants is, of course, the hairy petiole. And I think most people purchase Philodendron serpens for the hairy petiole, and probably squamiferium too. Like, people who are into hairy plants are drawn to this type of philodendron, right? Hopefully you can see. There we go. Yeah, it's a really, really, really cool one. So like I said, the leaves are different, so they're more of a heart shape. I really like the leaves on the serpens. I wasn't drawn to the leaves as much as I was the hairy petioles, obviously. But now that I'm growing it in my home, and like now that I've seen other photos of other people's and stuff, I'm like, wow, okay, I do actually really like the leaves. And this is like a newer one, and it still has some of that pink red, I think. Actually, it does kind of stay. It does kind of stay, the pink and red color, but it's definitely more prominent on the backs of the new leaves when they come in. And also the petiole. This is quite pink right now as well, but the hairs are green. Yeah, really cool. So we have a very different leaf shape, but we have hairy petioles on both of them. And the main difference in the like petioles is the hairiness of them, essentially. So the serpens typically, not typically, it has longer hairs on the petioles, and they're just a lot hairier, a lot fuzzier, just a more dramatic kind of look. Whereas the hairs on the serpens or on the squamiferium can be a little bit more understated. It's a bit shorter. It's kind of like stubble, and this one is like full-on hair. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's quite the sight, especially when you have like a mature plant. Mine is still kind of young, and it's like honestly not doing amazing. I'm figuring it out. I'm definitely figuring it out, but we've had our struggles together. So that being said, if I had to choose one, I would 100% choose the Philodendron serpens. I just prefer it. If I'm purchasing a plant and growing a plant for the hairy petioles, I want the hairiest petioles that I can get, right? So I'm gonna go with the serpens just because of that. But also, like I just showed, I already have other philodendron that have a similar leaf shape to this squamiferium, that have this kind of like Florida leaf shape. So I feel like since I already have that leaf shape in my collection in other plants, I don't really care that the serpens leaf isn't maybe like as interesting. I actually am happy that it's not. Like, I'm happy that it's this type of leaf rather than that, because I already have multiple of that leaf shape in my collection. So I'm super excited to have something just a little bit different. But yeah, they're both great plants. This is known to be more finicky, so if you want hairy petioles but you really just want something that's going to be like simple, straightforward, easy to care for, I would go with the squamiferium. But if you're wanting maybe a little bit of a challenge and you really are wanting those hairy petioles and you're willing to invest more time and energy into that, then I would go with the serpens. Honestly, it's not super high demand, I don't think. I was very nervous to take this out of my greenhouse cabinet a couple months ago now, and I did, and it's given me 2 leaves since then. And in the cabinet, it's so weird, it was not growing at all. And I had always heard like these need high humidity, they're not going to do well in room conditions. And then I saw her plant stories, Becca's video, one of her videos on her channel, I think the video about growing in room humidity, and she shows her philodendron serpens, and it was like looking freaking amazing. Like, honestly, one of the nicest serpens I've ever seen. So I immediately took mine out of the cabinet and I was like, okay, we're trying this out, we're doing this. And after I took it out, it grew 2 leaves. So yeah, it's actually been doing better in lower humidity, which is interesting. And I don't have low humidity, okay? My humidity stays in the 50s usually. So it's not like I'm at like 30% here or anything. But yeah, that's kind of been my experience growing, and I don't think it's as scary as some people make it out to be. I mean, mine is looking crazy because, you know, it's just a little, yeah, we have some work to do, but I think I'm learning more about it and just kind of figuring it out, and we're headed in the right direction. Okay, so the next one, I already know that this is going to be another one that's really hard for me to choose between. And it is the Philodendron Brasil, which I have here climbing on a pole. She's a big girl. And versus the Philodendron Rio. So that's my Rio. She does have some brown spots because she had a rough transition coming out of the cabinet to room conditions. So we'll talk about her after, but I'm going to start with the Brazil because this is probably the one that most people are familiar with. This is a very accessible and affordable philodendron. Again, it's one of the heartleaf philodendrons, and you can grow it trailing or climbing. It has typically yellow variegation. It's typically a green leaf with yellow variegation. However, I do have some really cool leaves on mine, so I'll point those out to you. I really like this one. It's like mostly yellow, and then it just has some shades of green along the sides. I think that that one is really cool. And then this one, this is probably my favorite leaf actually. It just looks like, okay, it's hard to get in here to show you, but it looks like a watercolor painting, like all the yellow and different shades of green. I'll try to give you a close-up, but yeah, it's really cool. It's like very different from what the regular variegation usually comes in looking like on a Brazil. I'll find the leaves up here are like this. I would say is a pretty typical Brazil leaf. It's usually green on the outside and then has the yellow in the middle, or like this one, very typical also. And by typical, I do not mean boring or ugly. I just mean that's what the variegation more so will come in looking like over here too. Pretty standard. I have two Philodendron Brazils in my collection. One is on the Wally Grow wall, and it's honestly like not really doing anything. Yeah, I haven't had great luck with that one, but obviously this one that's climbing is doing really well. I love it. It's been a fun project having it grow up that moss pole. I think that they're beautiful philodendrons, honestly. Like I think that they're beautiful philodendrons, honestly. I don't love them trailing as much just because they tend to give really small growth. However, like I said, I do have one trailing, so like I still like them. It's just not, they can just give really small leaves. As opposed to when they're climbing it, they maintain the leaf size or size up. So it's kind of fun to do it that way. So most of us are familiar with Philodendron Brazil, and I'm going to be comparing it. There's actually a whole bunch of these that I could compare in this one. Like there's the silver stripe, the Gabby, the cream splash, but I'm going to be comparing it to the Rio specifically just because this is the one that I have. I have had the silver stripe in the past. However, I sold that plant when I moved because I just honestly wasn't the hugest fan of it. Look at this leaf. Like, oh my goodness, this is my favorite one probably on this plant right now. These were my favorite, these like super white ones, but now they're browning and looking a little bit sad. So the Rio has a lot more like silvery, minty bits, and the cream. It also seems to be a more elongated leaf, which is similar with the silver stripe. That one I also found was like a different leaf shape. It was very long and pointy. But yeah, very like cream and minty on the Rio. It's very pretty. I have mine trailing, as you can see, so it's doing the thing where it is starting to give me smaller leaves down here. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. I might chop it and then put it on a moss pole similar to what I've done with the Brazil here. But yeah, I love this plant. I think that the variegation is so stunning, and I'm seeing that it does have the ability to give me like a larger leaf, which is really cool. That's something that I really look for. So I am actually very curious to grow this on a pole and see what it ends up looking like, because I think that it could be really cool. If I had to choose one, I think I might actually go with the Rio. I feel like a lot of the times I'm like tempted to stick with the classics. It is hard to choose because I really like the Brazil, but I'm just very curious about the Rio, and I really like, I like silver plants, and this is more silver to me. Like this minty and the cream and like the whole vibe of it is just like more in the realm of the colors I'm drawn to when it comes to plants. So yeah, I definitely am going to be working with this plant sometime soon. So hopefully, you know, one of the next times you see it, it will have had a glow up. But yeah, I might go with this if I had to pick. Okay, so the last pair that I'm going to be talking about is the Philodendron Pink Princess versus the Orange Princess. Now, if you haven't heard of the Orange Princess, I actually didn't even hear about this until recently. I feel like this is kind of one of the current like it plants that's popping up all over Instagram and everything. So I'll put photos, of course. I do not own either of these plants. I used to have a Philodendron Pink Princess, but oh my goodness, that thing was just not worth the hassle, honestly. I had such a hard time growing it. It would not give me variegation. The leaves always got stuck. Yeah, I hated that plant, so I sold it. That being said, I don't hate Pink Princess in general. I think that some like when I see other people's that are, you know, have nice variegation and are growing well, I'm like, wow, like that is a beautiful plant and I would love to have one like that. It was just not my experience and I haven't tried again since. Would I try again? I mean, maybe one day. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of us have heard of the Pink Princess. It was like, there was Pink Princess craze a couple of years ago. Prices have really come down on them. Like I said, I had a hard time growing mine, but I would possibly try again one day, and I do really like other people's when it's a good specimen. And then the Orange Princess that we're going to be talking about is very similar, and I've heard people be like, oh, like I don't even know what the difference is. I can definitely see the difference. The Orange Princess, first of all, it just looks like in general a darker plant. Like the leaves look a lot darker. The variegation is more orange rather than pink, and it's more like speckled, like kind of splashed rather than, I mean, there is like some with sectoral variegation, and I think it's possible to have sectoral variegation on them, but for the most part it's more of just like a splashy, like splattered kind of look. I don't know, I think that they're kind of fun. Would I get one? Like definitely not right now because they're very expensive and you know, you don't really see them around. It's kind of like in that unattainable plant status right now, but do I think they're cool? Yes. And if I had to pick between getting a Pink Princess and getting an Orange Princess, I would go for the Orange Princess, honestly. I would give it a go. I really like orange plants, as you know, we talked about the whole Painted Lady orange marmalade thing. Love the orange on the plants. Even like Ring of Fire, that gets quite orange as well. I dig orange on plants, and I dig pink too. But the Pink Princess often is like, I think I go for the more red pink, and the Pink Princess is often like more of like a cherry pink, or like a bubblegummy pink. So yeah, if money wasn't a factor, I would give the Orange Princess a go before I would buy another Pink Princess. I'm quite curious about them, honestly. If you have one, leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear, and I would also love to hear any of your opinions on these plant pairs that we have talked about today. I always love to hear your input. I hope that y'all enjoyed this video. Once again, thank you so much to everyone who on Patreon who helped me out with it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. That also really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
I couldn't even if I tried.